next session we are moving into is the interactive session, myself and Lois, and we invite everybody that is able to join. Lois, please confirm if you can hear me. Lois, are you on the call?
Yes, I am.
All right, Kosi, can you pin myself and Lois so that people can follow up on the conversation?
Okay, that's done. Please, you guys can go ahead.
Okay, so we have just 3 questions to talk about this afternoon before we end the entire session for day 1. We have been discussing so far about AI accountability, and as it relates to the global South, and also as it relates to the development and modeling of algorithms. So, Lois, I want to ask you, right, and also this is also thrown to everyone after Lois, is done with her thoughts. If you were designing a new AI system for public use, let's say, for instance, education or farming, what 3 things would you do to make it fair and accountable?
I think that's a very dicey question. To make it fair, I think first in designing the system, right, I would make sure that you said for farming, right? So I think one of the first things I would do is to ensure really what does this AI system, what question does it want to answer? What problem do I really want to assist farmers with? Because you can't necessarily build in isolation or build, without asking for farmers' perspective, what challenges are they encountering? I think that's the very first thing I would do, because that would ensure that whatever AI system I am building is going to be equitable and is going to answer some of the challenges that farmers may have. Then I think the second thing I would say, aside from making sure that farmers are in the pipeline for designing that system, which is embedded AI, is ensuring that, developers themselves have an understanding of how do we really want to tackle this challenge. So we have to have an internal structure of how we want to build the systems. Like, for example, what data do we want to work with? What kinds of farmlands are we going to be working with? Which still ties back to my initial point on looking at what challenges are farmers facing, because we understand that we have to take some things into account, like the locations of these farmers, what kinds of crops are they using, what kinds of produce do they have. Are there any other third parties in the pipeline of their occupation? I think that is something really, really important. And I would also say, getting stakeholders on board. So I would want to know, if these farmers previously, before building my AI system to assess them, if these farmers have some form of collaborations with the government, do they have some middlemen, third parties assisting them? And I think it's very important that all these people are onboarded before I even go about developing the AI system. So I think I would be really, really careful with my development phase, ensuring that everything is really in place, because that is what will inform the output or the outcomes that we would have from the system.
Yes, I also have a challenge. I know that Elinge's hand is raised up. When people talk about accountability, what comes to our mind is that we focus more on high-risk sectors. For instance, facial detection, probably the use of surveillance system, probably the use of AI probably for emotional support, use of AI, conversational AI tools, and so on. Questions as these, people do not consider it for areas where they tag as low risk. For instance, education could also be high risk, like farming, probably for manufacturing. All those are not areas that have not gotten public attention. So how do we, does this design, like, what could be like the discrepancies when it comes to the design of AI system, when you are when you are looking at the fairness and the accountability measures, of AI systems, looking at areas that are not high risk, areas that are not tagged as high risk, still as farming, right? They definitely affect, the nature, they affect nature, ecology, climate. How do we balance it? And it's probably I would throw this to I would allow Elingi to speak, while then would revert to Lois to tie this up, and then consider those areas that are not highly volatile, the areas that are not high stake. Elingi?
Well, thank you so much. If I was creating an app, if that's the question, if I didn't get it wrong, one of the things I would consider very much is the data that is being used to train these AI systems. The aspect of data biases, the aspect of privacy and security all goes back to the data that we decide to use. I would also have to consider also the aspect of data biases, privacy. I would also have to consider the guardrails that I set while I'm creating this app. I wouldn't like this app to exceed to what I expect it to do. Then I would have to consider the demographics, the various people who are going to use this app. I have to ensure that the data that I use applies to all people and it won't discriminate or segregate any specific group of persons. Then also I will have to consider the adaptability and productivity rate. Of course, when usually you're testing these apps or these AIs in the sandboxes, you can monitor that adaptability and the productivity of these apps in while you're doing those studies. So I would also consider that, because at the end of the day, if I produce an app and people just look at it, someone said the productivity of an app is looked at how consistently people use it and how productive it makes them to be more how it makes them to be more productive. So I would also consider that. Then I would also consider how it is complacent with existing laws globally and domestically, because at the end of the day, if I create an app and it violates, for example, the GDPR, yet people in Europe use it, then it won't be to any advantage. So I would have to consider also the regulations and the policies that regulate the app that I'm using, something like that. Thank you so much.
Okay, Lois, just tie everything up before we go to the next conversation. Or does anybody have anything to impute, any other input in this question? Abdul, we could just go on. Abdullahim, sorry for the wrong pronunciation.
It's okay. It's okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and I'm happy to be part of this conversation. So I think we're looking at this issues from a nuanced perspective, from local perspective. Then we also need to consider unique challenges, just like the previous speaker made mention of adaptability. Most of these farmers that we are deploying this system, that we are building all these things for them, are they even what should I call it? Are they digitally capable of using it per se? We need to consider that digital education as well before even putting it into practice. Where most of our farmers are not even digitally educated, talk less of this AI and what have you. So I think this is the fundamental question we need to consider while coming up with this innovative systems. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abdullahim. Lois, please could cap up the question while we go to the next.
Okay, so I'll just be very brief. Thank you so much. I can't really pronounce your name, Hagenyi. Forgive me if I'm, mispronouncing it. And Abdul Halim. Yeah. So thank you so much for your contributions. I think really we could cap everything up into three forms. That's context, feedbacks of these systems, and general risks. And I'm so glad that the both of you touched on about two of these risks. So for general risks, we're going to be looking at data protection, for example, but aside from data protection, also the quality of these AI systems. And most times when we look at the risks involved, they are usually interrelated. So when we look at general risks like the quality management of the systems, you can be looking at whether they've gone through any form of ISO checks, whether there's any form of audits involved, which thankfully we'll be looking at in the course of this program. Also, we would say context because we're talking about farmers, and when we look at these systems, it could differ from place to place, from person to person, and even from geographic region to region. So in the African region, because this is Pan-African Center for AI Ethics, right? We also have within different countries, different kinds of environmental landscapes, which have to be taken into account. Also farmers' practices. So feedback systems are also really important when we are looking at the context, because this helps to inform what we are looking at in our contextual basis. So what are farmers' practices like? Do they have any form of persisting methods or traditional methods they have used that they may want to bleed into these new AI systems that are making use of? Can we look at any form of relations they have outside of themselves? Maybe the relationships they have with the government, relationships they have with producers, marketers that are assisting them. So really, when we look at the context, when we look at feedback systems, they are so interrelated, and each one informs the other because these AI systems are not stagnant. They have to adapt themselves to certain risks that may keep occurring. For example, I think that was last week, there was a very popular argument on social media about the use of GMOs. So these are incoming risks that I think these AI systems would have to plan for, and they cannot properly plan for them if they don't have feedback systems from the farmers, from the persons that get to interact with these seeds or interact with these AI tools in their daily practices.
Yes, thank you very much, Lois, for that. Probably I'll just ask you one more question. If time permits, we ask the third one, and if time does not permit, we will end the session. The second question I have for you here is flowing from the previous question, and I observed that some companies now publish AI ethics guidelines, but many don't follow them. What can be done to make sure ethics isn't just words on paper? So, for instance, just as Bernice presented, you see many just the way we have privacy policy, many companies are now seeing the need to have AI ethics guideline. How do we ensure that this ethics guideline, people follow it? And I also give you an example, right? I think some months ago, some months ago, we discovered that some big companies, they started removing some particular term from the term of use. For instance, the use of their model for military use, the use of their model for XYZ. And we saw that shortly after that, some things begin to happen. So how do we ensure that companies are able to how do we ensure that companies are able to follow the ethics principle, and those that don't have, how can we sell it to them to see the reasons why they need an AI ethics policy or probably ethical guideline, AI ethics guideline? How do we, make the thing for them?
Okay, so really, I believe that addressing this issue of accountability, ensuring accountability with the use of AI can be seen from two different approaches. So the first one can be internal structures that can be put in place by these organizations, these institutions to ensure that, AI is being used by employees within the organization. So we could have an organization itself, ensuring that it creates its own guidelines, it publishes it. It ensures that the workers within these companies take certain trainings, are being put to an understanding of the use of AI systems. And also they are able to track not just the AI systems or AI tools that the company makes use of, but also the one.
Please confirm if you can hear Lois. I think I cannot hear her. Can anybody hear her?
I believe we lost her too.
Okay. Okay. So while Lois is joining me, do you have anybody that wants to contribute to the conversation?
Okay, Tony's hand
Conversation.
is up. Yeah, Tony, please go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, from what I've understood from your conversation, Kingsley and Lois, um, there is a gap between, because I have seen several documentaries about how AI is used in agriculture in Australia, because they have drought and they want to increase their crops, and they want to and it helped them predict rain and predict drought and other elements, and it helped them a lot. And let me speak about here in Egypt. We need more yield when it comes to farmed land, and AI could help us with that. But when it comes to AI and its implementation, many farmers don't have that. It's not accessible to them to learn about AI and how to use it in their farming schedules, and I think this is a part that is lacking. It's missing from the link. Upskilling not just workers in companies, but in all areas where AI could be beneficial. So how my question is, maybe how could it happen? How could it happen?
Okay, thank you very much, Tony. Just to put context to our conversation, I appreciate your thoughts on the use of AI, for agriculture in different contexts, and different perspectives that countries, are considering. But I want to ask, as it now relates to questions on publishing AI ethics guidelines and doing something contrary to the publication. So most of the guidelines are just books. They're just books for the records, and there's no strict rules, or there's no visible moves by the organization to ensure that they are they're sticking to it. So I think I can see Oluwole. Please go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon. From the question you asked, Lois, one thing I believe is that there should be, for the guidelines you spoke about, talking about companies assuring guidelines. I think companies should comply. For those companies that have those guidelines, they should comply to those ethical guidelines. And this begins with strong regulatory oversight and transparent, establishing transparent accountability mechanisms. Then I believe that the government and other independent bodies also must be able to enforce AI-specific regulations. And what I mean is that they should mandate regular ethical impact assessments. They should have things like promoting third-party algorithmic audits. So this helps in detecting harmful biases or misuse. Also, when it comes to the issue of model development, the issue of transparency is just very, very key. So there should be things like clear documentations, of the data sources and decision-making and logic, should also be required. Then those companies that adopt these practices, I believe there should be things like incentives, maybe through certifications, maybe funding access and public recognition. So this will create like a competitive advantage for this ethical innovation. Then on the other side, where you spoke about organizations without existing AI ethics and framework, I believe there should be a clear national policy which must be established based on international best practices. So these things should be flexible enough that it allows all these sectors, to adopt this the policies, and these policies should address specific risk in areas. We have lots of fields such as agriculture, finance, healthcare, education. Then also in this adaptation, I believe the government also and industry leaders should invest in capacity building initiatives, such as training, like what you are doing for us now, set guidelines, then there should be AI governance toolkits. I call it toolkits, the do's and don'ts. So all these things now should align to the local effort and bring about a global ethical standard that will foster consistency, trust, and a responsible use of AI technology worldwide.
Thank
All right,
you
thank
very
you.
much, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your contribution. So we'll take Telma for just 2 minutes and then we end this session. Telma, just 2 minutes.
Hi, good afternoon. I hope I'm audible. So my question is actually, sorry, my answer is actually quite short. I think for these practices to actually be enforced, they should be embedded in existing legislation. For example, anyone who's familiar with cross-border data transfers would know about the concepts of BCRs, that's binding contractual rules, and then SCC, standard contractual clauses, which companies are supposed to have, I think in Nigeria, I don't know about other jurisdictions, but at least in Nigeria, before they can transfer data out of the borders. So recently, I know that our data protection laws have started to embed these things and make references to them, even if back then it was the job of the companies to come up with whatever format or structure, or the general template of how those contractual clauses would look. So I think on the flip side, when it comes to AI regulation, whatever acts we have to regulate these things should make references to these terms and even start to specify the actual terms so that companies are not just going on the frolic of their own, the actual in-house regulatory policies that they should have, even if it's going to be the responsibility of these companies to create those policies, and then make reference to those things in the laws and occasionally even demand for them as part of regulatory checks and for audit filings and things like that.
Thank you so much, Telma, for that question and for that contribution. I see that there is a question on the group, on the chat. Is explainability considered a key component of AI ethics, or are there other equally important aspects? Yes, explainability is considered as a key component of AI ethics. Explainability helps to understand the basis behind the decision of all AI models. So there are several ways companies, adopt or adapt or input explainability into their AI model. Some could do that through putting in like a user guide. Some could put in some sort of feedback loop where you could ask questions as to why an AI decision has been arrived, and several other methods. Several other methods. Company use to input explainability into their AI model. While some companies have no measures for explainability, no criteria for explainability, but it's really good that the explainability, there is explainability rules to help people to understand how the AI model works. And I think some data protection regulations are beginning to input the explainability measures to when data have been processed. Joseph, I'll just give you 1 minute to make your contributions before Lois round up this particular session and hand it over to Kosi. Joseph?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the session. It was great. It's sad that we lost Lois in the middle. Just a quick one. We've talked about responsible AI, but I'm looking at the geopolitical sense of it. I'm looking at the issue of adversarial AI. What is that? Because let's go back we're going back to cybersecurity. We've had incidents of the usual hackers, but there's also state-sponsored hackers in that sense. So looking at the AI as well, same things that would probably happen in the normal Internet of Things would probably happen with AI. So when we talk of responsible AI, do we cover the aspect of also adversarial AI because it's been used as a tool for thought, and sometimes used by governments. I mean, I'm talking for the aspect coming from or we call it the developing world, or the South. We see a lot of the issue of GPUs and whatnot is Western held. But what are we as this part of I say the Greater South? What are we doing in that respect? That was my question. Thanks.
So I did not fully get your question. Lois, did you get the question?
Oh, sorry. I mean, yes, we've touched a lot on responsible AI, but I'm trying to bring the same spectrum to adversarial AI. I mean, the red teaming or the blue teaming of so I'm just building up from coming from I'm a data scientist, and my background is more or less from cybersecurity space. But the things we see in the cyber realm, but then now we're talking of you're going towards quantum AI kind of things. But how are we in terms of in the space of responsible AI? I mean, looking at people, processes, and technology, that triad. How do we address this, especially coming from state actors as well at adversarial AI? We've seen this. I mean, in elections or news, misinformation, that kind of aspects. I just wanted to widen up the scope of this, if possible.
Yeah. So for adversarial consideration for responsible AI or AI ethics is something that is gaining. Okay, Lois, go ahead. Lois, can you hear me? Can anybody hear me?
I think she's frozen again.
I'm so sorry to cut you short, Kingsley. I'm really sorry because I know you really have a lot to say concerning this, but I just wanted to track and give some examples of AI for this Africa Observatory AI for Development. They've had some research concerning, red teaming. Also, Google, I think Google's adversarial nibble challenge, something along those lines. So they've done some research and some form of red teaming, prompting these AI systems to try to find out where are their weaknesses, where can we beef them up. So I just wanted to add some practical examples, because I believe that is what he's asking. What are the African efforts we've had so far concerning red teaming, prompting, and to test these AI systems for vulnerabilities?
And I also believe that it's something that is getting attention. For instance, when the OpenAI wanted to release their O model, they engaged a lot of people for the red teaming. In fact, I know of people from Africa and Nigeria, from my colleagues, that were part of the professionals that did like a red teaming test on they did like a jailbreaking. I think that's the better word. They did like a jailbreaking on the model, and the result of that jailbreaking was publicly released, just to show the capacity of the work and to show the extent at which its capacity, what it could do, and so on. I think there was even a time a particular company wanted to release a model, and they published it. They made it public that they were looking for jailbreakers that would jailbreak the algorithm, and they were willing to pay for it. So it's something that is gradually getting prominence, and we are looking at it from the center. In coming days, we'll have a session on jailbreaking and red teaming. But yeah, it's still something that we are still working on and planning. All right, I think that's the end of this particular session. We are already out of time. Lois, do you have any parting words?
Yes. So I just wanted to say, I know we may have a lot of questions concerning the project for the summer school. I wanted to let you know that we are currently working on how we can disseminate the information across to you. So hopefully by the end of this week, you should have something on your table so you can get started as quickly as possible. So just hold your questions concerning that, and we'll be sure to attend to you soon enough.
Yes. Also, why we have this conversation also is to lay proper background for the research that we are doing, and then the project that you're all going to do. So all these are going to form part of the metrics for the research you are doing. So yeah, it's a good start and a good conversation. Thank you all for joining. Kosi, you could come in and end the session for today.